Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 35. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How's things with you?
Yeah, not bad at all. I've got a slightly new setup, and I've kind of fallen in love with RGB stuff. So everything is just rainbow colors in this like corner of the room. I'm having a good time. How about you?
Good. Yeah, not bad. I'm right after this episode. I'm finally getting my hair cut for the first time since February. So. That'll be good.
Nice. I think I'm just gonna let it grow again. I do this every year.
Yeah.
I cut it once and then I let it grow for a year, and then I go, I'm just gonna have it short again. So we'll see. Maybe I keep it longer for more than that. See what happens.
Cool.
So I'm really looking forward to this episode today because I'm not an expert, but I just love it.
Right.
This subject is just really fun, I think.
I've never
really
met anyone who finds this interesting, but I don't know what the title of this episode is called, but I'm going to make it like clickbaity as anything, because if I make it what the actual subject's about, no one will click it.
Oh yeah. No.
So yeah,
this one thing will change your band forever.
Yeah,
it will elevate your playing to god levels.
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. It's not really lying. So
music theory. So
yay.
Yeah. It is when you hear music theory, this you kind of the connotations is like, I don't know, science class or like mathematics. It's just boring.
It's a
sterile, horrible kind of thing. But
it's a surefire way to get a guitarist out of your house. Just go, so
music theory, bye.
So music theory, and they're just like before music comes out, they're out the door, and they're like, I'll see you later.
They just scream down the road, I'm only kidding, valve amps, and then they just about turn and come back in. Pedal boards. If musicians cared as much about music theory as they did pedal boards and guitar amps, it would be much better. We'd have much better music. So music theory, like, so I was thinking about like what exactly music theory is. So music, to my knowledge, music theory is an objective way of measuring or describing or communicating things about music. So we can say objectively that a middle C is a certain frequency, or A440, that is objective. What you do with the notes once you have established what those objective notes are is entirely subjective, but there is an objective part to music, and we call that music theory. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, more or less. I would stress that, I mean, the kind of music theory we're going to be talking about today is mostly like European, like Western European,
of course, yeah.
music theory, because that's just kind of what we're in. There's other kinds of music theories.
Yeah.
You should go 100% go and check them out. You know, in Indonesia and India and Japan as well. They have, and just different regions have their. This was news to me, but like, because you forget that but other cultures have their own music theory and their own way of approaching it. There are similarities. Yeah. But, which is cool, because it means that there is a commonality throughout all of these things that we can all use to bridge the gap, and it makes it more accessible. But in general, what you basically described as just Western music theory, yeah, more or less, which basically stems back all the way from like, you know, the late 17th, early 18th century. That's when the music theory that we know, which is all based on like analyzing Bach and stuff, like that's kind of what it's all based on, and then everything is just sort of built up from that.
Mm-hmm. So this is getting quite deep into it quite quickly.
Yeah, sorry.
This is the sort of classic music theory. This sort of Western music theory is it's the only one you'll probably care about if you're listening to this podcast. If they're like, it's basically, it's like a game of chess.
But you're right.
A game of chess. The rules of chess are objective. The moves within chess are subjective, meaning that you move and you have to play by the objective rules. But of course, we as human beings made up the rules of chess. But the chess piece and the chess board exists objectively, and then you can operate within that frame. And it's the same with music theory. So we have the West has a theory of music, and we have, you know, all the keys, we have all the types of rhythms and things that we use, and we, you know, use in the Western context, and you can do whatever you want within that frame. If you start to move out with it, then you're going out with the norm. For example, like microtones and things like that. It's not typical in. I mean, we have theory to describe that, and we usually borrow from like sort of Middle Eastern or Far East music, which uses like microtones, like Indian music and things like that. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're just going to talk about the basic concepts that you need to care about in your band.
Basically meat and potatoes.
Yeah. So
of music.
Being a drummer, I started with my strong suit, which is rhythm theory.
Right.
So this is kind of like drummers territory here. Every song that you play in your band will most probably, like 99.999% of the time, will be in a time signature. And some of you, if you've done sort of basic level, high school, not even primary level, early school level music, you will know what a time signature is. So most pop music is in 4/4. So basically, what that basically means is you can count 4 beats in a bar, and it's 4 quarter notes or crotchets if you're in Britain. So you're already lost.
Uses crotchets,
and you've already moved on to the next podcast. But so pick any sort of modern pop song, and you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sometimes it
3.
goes 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, and even then, it is all just like, it's all variations on 3/4 or 4/4. You know, because you've got things like 6/8 and 12/8. 12/8 is just 4/4, but
swung.
Each beat is divided into sort of 3 triplets, basically. You know, and etc.
Yep. So it's really hard to describe time signature. I was trying to do it the other day there to my parents.
Yeah,
and they have
it's hard.
It's really hard. It's like, see when you're an outsider and you're not a musician. It's the hardest thing in the world to explain because my dad is like the least musical person on planet Earth. You can't even clap in time to music, let alone play an instrument. My mum has some musical proficiency. She can sing and play a little bit of guitar, so she kind of gets it. But my dad, trying to explain what 4/4 is, if he'll stick on his favourite song, and he knows the song really well, but he can't even clap to it. He can't, like, if I ask him, like, how many beats can you count? And he's like, what do you mean? Do you just, like, clap until the end of the song and that's how many beats are in it? Like, no. and then I have to explain like how many beats is there in a pattern that repeats. So you listen to like a drum kit, and it's like dun dat dun dun dat dun dat dun dun dat. That's a pattern, and it repeats exactly after four counts. So you can find, it's basically pattern seeking, and you can find the lowest common denominator, which is the bar. So this is where... say again?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it makes you think how we were actually taught this, and because I this is one of the things that I struggle with when I'm teaching people for the first time. Usually, they somehow magically they just get it, I'm like, okay, cool.
It's weird,
right,
isn't
that's great, but it is really bizarre. I was thinking to myself, like, how did anybody teach me this stuff? Did I just know it?
Yeah.
Did I just know it? I mean, technically, we do generally. I know parrots have this same. I can't remember. There's a name for it, but basically, it's that sort. There's like a sort of musical kind of response. Like I don't know if you like, but parrots can keep time.
Really? Okay.
To music,
right.
which is really interesting. So they register that, and humans have kind of the same thing, and you see it in babies quite a lot. In that, if you play the music, then they do register the beat. It's something that we do get naturally, and unless we are sort of listening to music all the time, which was the case in my house, and my dad basically just played music all the time, and MTV was on in the background all the time, and there was just music on all the time. It just sort of became part of, I don't know. I just sort of like, music, I get it, I understand it, So, but yeah, the concept of a time signature is weird. I think the best place you can start is, can you feel the pulse? Can you keep time? Could you march on the spot, or can you clap along, right? And then you start from there, and then you introduce the pattern seeking kind of a thing. So you go, oh look, there's if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, look, it magically loops back. Isn't that interesting? And then once you got that down, you can start looking at subdivisions, which is basically a fancy word for just splitting that 1, 2, 3, 4 into 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E, just more and more little sections. I think this is why people don't like music theory, because it's just math.
I'll try and make it simple for people. Imagine you're driving a car, and we'll use metric terms because I don't know how many yards are in a mile. So we'll say 1 kilometer. Every 100 meters, you will get a signpost that says 100 meters. So your count, your beat, is that 1 kilometer, and the subdivisions is how many divisions are in between signposts.
You see,
So there will be 10 signposts saying 100 meters between you and that 1 kilometer mark. So that's a subdivision. That's essentially a subdivision. So you can do it in weight as well, like between 0 and 10 kilograms and all that.
Aye. And then this is, so that those are your kind of simple subdivisions, and that everything sort of subdivides into either like 2s or 4s.
Yes.
And then you can get funky and start subdividing things into 3s and 6s.
And 5s
and 12s
7s.
if you're crazy. 5s and 7s, and then you get ridiculous, subdivisions like I've played, because I'm a flute player, and back when I was playing a lot of classical music, there's just some parts where you just get like 22 tuplet runs, and I'm like, I'm just gonna play it fast. Hope for the best. That's usually the case.
That's what everyone does. You know what note to start on and what to end on and when to do it, so you just kind of fit them all in until you get it. That's pretty much
basically.
But with time signatures, the only 2 subdivisions you really need to care about in terms of
to get started
is 4 and 8. So, or a quarter and an eighth. I should say.
I would also I 4, 8s, and 3s, because your triplets are important.
No, that's not a time signature. That's a tuplet. So,
Sorry, my bad. Oh, my bad.
so I'm talking about the bottom number.
Sorry.
You're
Four
basically
and 3.
4, 3, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 12, 8.
6, 8.
But you'll probably never play anything with 16 on the bottom. I'm losing people now. So
No, not at all. Listen, if you stuck through so far, it means that you're big brain and you know what's going on.
So
right.
Time signatures, to sum up, a time signature tells you information about how many beats are in a bar and what subdivisions are in that bar and how you should think about the pulse. That's essentially what a time signature is. So once you've established that, you can then move on to, I've put here tuplets. So a tuplet is a group.
That's what I kind of rushed on to.
It's okay. Yeah. A tuplet is a way of grouping notes together and making them shorter in value than they are without the grouping. So you can end up with things like triplets. You've probably heard of triplets. So like an example of a song with triplets, something famous. Can you think of anything that anyone would know?
The bass line in Come Together was the first thing that popped into my head. The bum bum bucket bum 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 bucket bum.
Okay.
No, that's not quite right. Maybe bucket da. Yeah, that is a triplet. Yeah.
Yeah, what you're saying is a triplet, but there's no triplet in that bass line. But
no, there's no triplet in the tune. Never mind. Let's think of something else.
All right, so something really, really famous, like "Crazy Little Thing Called Love" by Queen is in 4/4, right? So the drum fill that goes into the chorus, so there you
go. Yeah.
Right, that's a triplet. So triplet, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's a triplet. So what happens there? How do you fit 3 notes into what would usually be 4? Because it would be it would be like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1, but they've managed to squish in 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 instead. So what you do is you take the ordinary 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, and you put 3 in the space of 2, and by doing that you shorten the note and you create that triplet feel, that sort of skippy beat. So a lot of jazz music, a lot of folk music as well. You get like in Scotland we call them jigs. So everything's based around that triplet feel.
Yeah, although jigs are written in 6/8. Yeah.
So, but it's measure, basically the dancing measure is on the 1 2.
It's 1 2 1 2. Yeah. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is where it all starts to like mush.
Yes.
It all kind of becomes relative to what you're feeling, you know, and it's interesting.
Yeah. So a tuplet, when thinking about like a tuplet, and the only one you should really worry about is triplets. When thinking about them. When you hear, like, say you're a drummer, I'm thinking from a drummer's perspective, someone who used triplets all the time was John Bonham. He used them in his drum fills all the time. If anyone is a John Bonham fan, he would play this digga-diggum, digga-diggum, digga-diggum all the time on his kit. So he would it would be like snare, tom, tom, kick, or snare, tom, kick, kick. He was amazing at playing. He always incorporated that rhythm, but he would do it on a straight signature, because most of Led Zeppelin's stuff was like just straight 4/4 rock tunes. But he would stick in this weird skippy triplet beat. It's because John Bonham was a jazz drummer originally. That's why he was so good. So he was maybe borrowing some some of his like jazz influences and putting it into rock music. That's why he was so amazing.
Yeah.
So the place that you would use triplets and stuff like that is probably in like drum fills. And it can sound like, it kind of pulls the listener out, like when you've been having this sort of straight feel, and then they shove in a triplet fill. It can be like, whoa, that's really cool. So you would maybe hear that a few times, but obviously we're basically, this whole episode will be just talking about things that you should look more into. Really. This is just like giving you something to think about, to go ahead and read more about it, because we can't cover it in a podcast, because it's just...
If you're wanting like a very, what's the word? If you are just wanting to have like a very basic grasp of just music theory, doing up to like, because you can do exams in them, learning up to about, grade 5 theory.
Yeah.
Is more or less all you'll need, because then after that, because it's based on like, I'm talking about like ABRSM exams here, like, and from what I remember, and I did it when I was like 13. I did it because I wanted to do my grade 8, and you needed grade 5 theory to do your grade 8 in whatever instrument. So that is a good way, just in general. If you're just wanting to just learn about this stuff, just get some books and go through them. You can get a grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 workbook, and just work through it, and it's got all the answers, and you can just work through it yourself, kind of a thing. And then if you feel like it, you can sit an exam, but you don't need to. But I feel like that's a good way if you want like a sort of structured way of learning it, rather than sort of haphazardly stumbling on Google and just looking things up. Like, it's generally quite a good way to just go through it.
Or you could send us an email, a message at the website or on Facebook or whatever, and we'll get back to you, because, well, Julian is a music teacher and is well equipped to teach music theory. So if anyone wants classes, like a couple of classes on music theory, on basic music theory, give us a shout. Like, I'm sure Julian would be happy to take on a student.
For sure. Yeah. I'd be down for that. That'd be good fun.
I don't think I'm, clued up enough to do that.
I don't know. You're probably fine. You're probably.
I don't know like all the technical terms. I know the basics and stuff. But I'm not.
But that technical terms are just that, technical terms. They're good to know. Because somebody might throw out a little technical jargon, maybe. Yeah. I used to be really bad for that. I've been trying recently to not, basically, this goes out to everybody, speak as plainly as possible, because it doesn't make you look smart. Just going, what you really want to play there is a flimble flamble over the flimble dongle. It's like, okay. Cool. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Simplify. Yep. Anyway, yeah.
So I've got next here. This is another popular one. Cross rhythms, polyrhythms.
Yeah.
So what we've got here, this is 2 or more either players, or you can actually do this within your own playing, especially drummers, because we have 4 limbs and we're usually playing 4 limbs all simultaneously. So what you, as a drummer, can do is you can play a rhythm on your right hand and a different rhythm on your left hand. I mean, any drum beat is basically a cross rhythm. Yeah.
There's a really cool, sorry, this just reminded me of something. There's a good Adam Neely video where he explains how to do this with any rhythm.
Yeah.
So in that one he does 7-Eleven, because 7-Eleven is a grocery store in America. So he goes and he does a thing in 7-Eleven in front of 7-Eleven. It was a bit of a meme at the time, and it came out on 7-Eleven. The video as well. Right. It was all perfectly timed. But yeah, he goes through this method where he's like, you can literally just put this number here and then this number here, and you can learn how to do that polyrhythm, and it's a really good way to just expand your playing and the way you're thinking about music, you know. The one I tried to play around with, I might come back to it, but I couldn't really come up with anything at the time, was 5/6. Which was a 5/6 polyrhythm, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to maybe do.
I play that sometimes
with that.
On the drums. I play sometimes I play a polyrhythmic 5 over a song that's in 6. So where you would usually go da 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 da, I'll cram in 5 instead of 1 2 3 4 5 6. I'll go 1 2 3 4 5. Usually faster than that. There's a drum fill in one of the Erska tunes. I do that. I go 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1, and it's over 6. See if you can guess what tune it is. So
it's one of the jigs, but
it's one of the jigs. Yeah, it's one of the jigs. It was based. I saw a video by Annika Niles, the female drummer. Prodigy, she's amazing. You should check out that. She's got an Instagram. I was watching one of her videos. She was doing it's like a quintuplet thing, basing everything around 5, playing a 5 polyrhythm thing, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And there's something that she always incorporates into her playing is she plays 5s, groups of 5s instead of groups of 6. Like digga 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 boom ba 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 boom ba ba. She would, instead of doing that, she would play 5, and then it would make the listener go, was that right? But yeah, she's total control. I just like, I want to do that. So that's the idea of a cross rhythm or a polyrhythm, is combining 2 rhythms together, basically.
Yeah.
So I want
them together.
I want to add one in here. Is when it kind of goes on with the next one. So you put internalized tempos. I'm going to say internalized rhythms as well. So when
it kind of goes hand in hand.
When you're playing a song, it's important to never forget the pulse and the tempo and where your beat is. So it's really, really important to figure that out, because if you lose that and you're just playing your beat, playing the thing that you're playing, and you have no reference point, things start to go really bad, both speed-wise and rhythm-wise. You will start to lose beats. I've heard people do this, where they'll be playing along. It happened to me when I was it's only happened to me once live, and I was really young. I was maybe 18. Right. I was playing a big band tune called American Patrol. It's a classic, just a Glenn Miller thing, really simple. And I somehow lost a beat. My internal model of the song was wrong. So the song's like 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, and for whatever reason, my internal tempo skipped a beat. So I was landing on 1 when everyone else was landing on 4. And I immediately corrected it, because I could be like, I know this song well enough to know that I am not correct here. And everyone else is playing together and I'm not, so I must be the one that's wrong. It's not all of them. So after that, it never happened after that, because I just really emphasized in my head to just feel the pulse of the song internally, feel where 1 is. Because if you're playing something really rhythmically complex over the top of that steady pulse, and you lose where you are, your everything will just fall apart. I've seen it happen countless times in bands where the drummer just loses his internal feel and then doesn't know where 1 is, and then he stops playing, and then the whole band falls apart and breaks. It's the most horrible feeling ever as a player.
It's a bad time.
It's not great.
Yeah. It's happened to me but for me it was just I just lost where 1 was. It happened to me one time when I was soloing, and I was just like, wait, where am I in the song? What's going on? What happened?
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah.
And, when in soloing is different, but like, because when you can come back from that, you just need to stop for a minute, and then everybody thinks you're just taking a bit of space,
Yeah.
and it looks really cool, but it's not. You're just freaking out.
Yeah.
Just take a couple of seconds and then go, all right, cool. Yeah. And then go back to it.
It's scary.
But yeah.
It's scary. It's like flying in the dark. When you lose where one is, it's as if someone's taken away your vision, and it's the most disgusting feeling in the world. There's a piece we sometimes play. It's got a 32-bar drum solo, and everyone's counting. So they're counting in eights, waiting on that fourth time to be finished so that they can all come back in together after the drum solo. So if I mess up, they'll all come in staggered, because some people will be like, oh, something's wrong here. I'll maybe come in here. Then someone else is different. So you have to keep yourself right. You're the only one playing, so your internal reference has to be bang on the grid, exactly where it should be. But when you're in the middle of your solo and you're absolutely ripping it and just enjoying it, and then you just lose the beat, lose the 1, 2, 3, 4 out your head, and you're like, oh my God, I've just jumped out of a plane without a parachute, and I'm just like flying blind here. I don't know where one is. And then you start, I've done this as well, you start looking around at the players and trying to grasp their body language and go, right, do I see any emphasis of one here? And then you see one foot tap and you're like, there's a one, I'll go with that. And then you start to look around and then you see them starting to pick up their instruments and you go, all right, I'm going to guess this is one, and then it is, or it isn't.
Yeah.
That stuff's happened to me, and it's just like cold sweat. Oh my God. And when you're finished, you're like, oh, so bad. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's really nerve-wracking, especially when you're playing with 20 other musicians and they're relying on you to keep the whole band together. No, it just gives me chills.
Yeah. The whole, when I was with internalizing tempos, it's just generally a good idea to just have like a good memory recall of just common tempos, 60, 120, 100, maybe 160, 200 BPM, things like that. And not like, I want you to be able to instantly recall how fast 142.5 is,
Yeah.
Just like your most common ones, that you're going to be using.
Yeah.
And then, just get to know them. You don't have to be right in the ballpark. But it's just a good thing. And it's kind of fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Is it fun? I guess it's fun,
The only one I can remember is 120. I can pretty much just tap out 120 right away.
Well, that's a good start, because you've got like a... what you call it? You have like a reference point for any other kinds of, any other tempos, because from there you can half it. You got 60, you can double it. You got 240. That's a pretty, it's fast, but it's a pretty common time signature. So I think it's just generally,
as a drummer, it's
a good thing to be able to do.
It's probably less important to remember the specific number, and not just remember the song. So when I'm counting in songs, I'm playing a little bit of the song in my head before. So when I'm counting in an Eriska song, right before I'm about to start playing, I'm going, right, okay, how does the recording go? So it's about... That's the tempo of the song. I'm hearing the melody in my head before anyone starts playing. I'm going, okay, that's my tempo. Right, here we go. 1, 2, here we go. And it's a count in. It's something that can't be taught, but I would suggest the best way of learning how to do that and learning how to keep your tempo consistent from start to finish, which is really difficult for a drummer, is starting on one tempo and finishing on that same tempo. Best way to do that is to practice always with a metronome click.
What's a metronome? Never heard of it, mate. No, honestly, yeah. I can't stress this enough. Like, if you practice with a metronome, scales, something, scales are my favorite to practice with a metronome.
Yeah.
It just, your timing will just get better and better and better. I would say, if you're bored of the tick-tock of a metronome, put a drummer on.
Yeah.
Just get a drum machine, put some drums on,
Yep.
play along to that.
Yep.
It's just as good, and it feels a little bit. It's
more musical.
It feels a little bit more musical, So
cool. So that's
the rhythm.
Well, that's the rhythm. That's the most important part, I would say, for a drummer in a band is maintaining tempo and stop playing so damn fast in gigs. That's every drummer ever, including me.
Yeah. I mean, just in general, everybody. Imagine if it wasn't just the drummer in the band who had like good rhythm, and everybody in the band was just tight as heck. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
So just get on that.
Yeah.
Most important for drummers, but everybody should really just be proficient at it.
You as a drummer, your responsibility is to whip them all in line. Literally, like whenever I'm playing, you have the rhythmic powers to dictate to everyone else what the tempo is. And some bands are heavier than others, which is quite bizarre. I've played with all sorts of bands, like 3 pieces all the way up to 60 pieces. And usually the more players there are in a band, the heavier it is. So what I mean by heavy is when you start to push a tempo, or say you're playing along and the band will sometimes start to dip in tempo if it's a big band. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the tempo comes down. It's up to you to just don't yield to that and keep your internal metronome in your head going and just hold the line. And eventually they'll realize what's happening. They're dropping, but you're staying true. And then they'll realize that they're falling back and they'll come back up to your level. If you give them a little bit, maybe a couple of BPM here and then a couple of BPM more, before you know it, you're 10, 20 BPM slower than you were when you started. This happens in orchestras, and it happens especially with bad conductors and big bands because there's no conductor. When you're doing, I noticed this when you're doing accelerados, which is getting faster, when you've got passages of music that get faster, you've really got to ramp up, and you do not wait for anyone. You're on that train and you go, and if they're not on board, that's tough. You don't wait for them.
Yeah.
That's how you do as a drummer. You just have to dictate the tempo, and they just hope that they catch up with it. So that's kind of like, stay true, stay on that tempo. Don't let anyone else pull you down. You are the tempo, and they have to follow you. So make sure that you're on it. Practice with a metronome. Learn how to keep tempo. Cool. So harmony. Let's move on to harmony. This is getting out of my field of expertise and more into your world. You are the king of harmony. Cool. You're like probably the most proficient.
So, a couple of things to just sort of learn and get to know. All right. So thing number 1 is learn the Roman numerals for chords. And what I mean by that is that it's exactly that. It's just you have a chord, and that chord has a number attached to it. And this is all to do with like the degrees of a scale, right? So you won't hear anything, but I can just show you. So let's say this C here, right, is like note 1, right? If we move up, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Obviously, we won't count that C because we're just repeating ourselves there, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Notes in between there, right? So chord 1, which would be a C major. Obviously, you can't. Oh, I should have set this up. That would be
clever.
C. Yeah, that would be a chord, and then the next one you got another chord, and then you got another chord, and another chord, another chord, another chord, another chord, right? So just in general, it's good to just learn the numbers for those, just because it will open up the way you write a little bit more. You're not strictly thinking in terms of like, oh, C and A minor, they go together, they sound nice one after the other. It's like, no, chord 1 and chord 6 sound pretty good, and you can start building up progressions that way. So you can have, a very common progression. I'll get a guitar actually, so you can actually hear it. Would be something like.
So chord 1 is they call it the home chord.
The home chord.
So that's the key of the song, or.
Right. So basically, chord 1 is like bam. This is like chord 1 is always going to be the first chord,
when anyone
the
asks,
home chord of whatever key you're in.
Yeah, what key is this? And it's in G major. All right, G major is the home chord. That's number 1. Right.
There you go. Right. So and you can start thinking about chord progressions in terms of those numbers, right? So, C, A minor, F, G becomes 1, 6, 4, 5.
Right. So, in order to work out the Roman numeral, you have to count along the major scale of the 1 chord, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
More or less. And then you're thinking, oh yeah, but what about all the flats and the sharps and stuff?
Yeah, but that's not in the. That's not in the major scale, is it?
No, not really. But if you're writing a key in C, for example, right, and you've got a C, and then you've got an E flat major 7 that you want to put in.
Yeah.
You can just label that chord flat 3.
Yeah.
So you have C, and then I'm horrible at playing guitar. Flat 3 there. Okay. That's all. Or let's say you want to be really gnarly and you want to put in an F sharp. I don't know why you would do that.
Sounds cool.
But maybe there's a song in there. Who knows? But instead of being C to 4, it's just sharp 4. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but unless you're getting really, really technical, you're not going to be thinking about those kind of things anyway. But it's just generally a good thing to do.
So why should you learn Roman numerals? Would that help? Would that help if you're playing with a capo? Say you've got a singer comes in and you've learned it a certain way, and they want to take it up a tone. You put the capo up. You can still remember your Roman numerals.
100%, exactly. Yeah. So that's one place where it can work. It works if you're trying to explain a progression to somebody. Yep. So for example, somebody goes, "Oh, what's the chord progression?" Instead of going, "Oh yeah, it's like G major, and then you go to an E minor, and then you go to C, and then you go to a D," you can just go, "It's a 1, 6, 4, 5 in G," and it'll go,
boom, done. Yeah.
Excellent.
If they know their Roman numerals.
If they know their Roman numerals, which
they should.
Most respected musicians, will know.
Yeah.
So, So that's your Roman numerals. Again, you'll learn all of this stuff if you do, like grade 5 music theory, that kind of stuff. Just grab a music theory book and explains that. So you've got. We've talked about sort of like basic chords where it's kind of like built up from the bottom. So like, kind of a thing. There's also, you can have chords where the root note, or where the note of the chord isn't the root note. So what I mean by that is in a G chord, the root note is G.
Yeah.
But there's another way to play that chord, which would be for example, G over B, which sounds like
so
that.
the lowest note in the chord is a B, not a G anymore.
It's not, but that doesn't make it a B something. It's still a G.
Yes.
It just means that the bass is a B now.
Yeah.
You know, and you can do the one example that comes to mind. I don't know why this was the first example, but there you go.
Okay.
You know, thinking out loud / that Marvin Gaye song. I can't believe I forgot what it's called.
The Marvin Gaye song it's an F sharp minor, not
it's
D/.
an F sharp minor.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Ed Sheeran plays a D.
Yep.
And it's still a D, but he's put an F sharp
On the bass.
on the bass. Objectively, you can play the entire song like this, you know.
Yeah.
And it's still the same.
Yep.
But the movement of having that third in the bass just really changes up how that chord progression sounds. So yeah, just go through, look at like different examples of like, you know, combinations of slash chords that you can have. Once you start getting really crazy, you can start putting like a chord on top of another chord.
Yep.
You know, so for example, you can have like a D. Yeah, you could have like a C major 7 over D, which is a great sounding chord in my opinion. I think it sounds amazing. Or, you know, D over A minor over D.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yep.
And once you start really exploring those kind of things, you can start doing lots of like, you know, just cool, interesting stuff.
Yep.
And it'll really open up your songwriting and your band's sound a lot more, you know, because there's only so much, you know, that there's only so much you can get out of that. There'll be a couple of songs for sure, but it's always good to expand your horizons.
Like, yeah, I mean, if you're embracing slash chords, you can not only play slash chords on one instrument, you can split them. So you can have your guitar playing a straight A chord with an A on the bass, but have your bassist play something totally different. You can play an F sharp.
Like if you did that, you kind of get like an F sharp minor 7 chord, or you can get even funkier. You could put like an like an A major 9, and if you put a D in the bottom,
changes the tone completely.
You can get some really beautiful sounds, you know?
Yep.
So definitely it just opens up lots of things.
Yep. Slash chords are the equivalent of cross rhythms and polyrhythms. It's combining different tones together.
Exactly.
Basically.
You'll find that some just, I mean, it depends on the ear, but like some, although I don't know, maybe there is a theory out there. Maybe there are just chords that will just never work. I don't know. I've never really looked into that, but just try things out, and you'll find a whole palette of sound and color that you wouldn't have come across before if you hadn't looked into it. So yeah, that's chords. Or more or less, I think this pertains more to, also I suppose it's also piano as well. It can be really easy to get stuck in shapes and things like that, and thinking that can be kind of helpful, just knowing like, oh, that's a major 7 shape, That's a minor 7 shape. That's a 6 shape. That kind of a thing. But don't just think of, when you're writing, don't just think of that, like, what am I actually playing? Well, that's a D major 7, you know, that's an F major 7. You know, don't get too bogged down on, don't just focus on what it looks like. Actually learn the names of what you're doing. And it on top of that, it will just make you a more, what's the word? You'll be able to communicate information. You'll be able to put information across a lot clearer and a lot more efficiently than you would before. Yep. And on top of that, familiarize yourself with the scales that I'm gonna commit some heresy right here. I'm gonna play a nylon string guitar with a plectrum.
Oh dear.
Oh.
Nope.
Oh dear. And I did it badly as well, you know, just to add insult to injury. But learn the scales that are associated with those chords, right?
But so Julian, scales are boring.
No. Tough. They're good for you.
Eat your vegetables. You know? Grow up.
Exactly. You know, exactly. You know, oh, potatoes are boring. Well, I don't know.
Deep fry them.
Deep fry them. Do something to them to make them not boring, you know? So if you want, you can play, you know...
Blue scale.
With a drum machine, you know. You know. Different combinations. But it's really good to just learn... Alright, so D major 7. That's the chord there. You know, D minor 7. There you go, there's a Dorian scale I can also play. Aeolian, I can, you know, those scales also work with that one chord there. And, you know, just things.
I didn't include modes
like
because I didn't think, well, if you want to go through modes, then that's your
I'm not going to go through modes, major and minor, but sorry, yeah, my bad, I just got carried away. I was going to talk about just some, there are some scales that you can add that are just, like whole tone scales, for example, sound amazing over dominant chords, you know, so like, you know, it sounds like total whatever. Just because I can't actually play the chord and also play the scale at the same time, but it does work.
Yeah.
So just look for like little patterns and things, and yeah, just put 2 and 2 together. And the last thing, this is a bit of a weird one. This one works for me, and this is more for like the very advanced big boy crowd, who are like, yeah, I know music theory, right? I'm like, well, guess what? You're gonna level it up even more. So something that really I found really helpful anyway was basically learning how to harmonize 4 parts, right? So this is like classical, like music territory, right? So something that I used to do a lot when I was in school. I went to like a music school, so we did it quite a lot, and I did it in my first year of uni. Was harmonizing Bach chorales, not just Bach, but just melodies in general. So there's a whole method. I won't go into it because that would be a whole episode, and I wouldn't even do it justice because I'm not even that good at it. But it helped me so much just to think about how to write and how to harmonize different instruments and lines and things like that. It's basically just a way of like, here's a melody, right? Now let's make it actually sound like music, you know. So you go through a whole system where you add a bass line, and you then add one of your middle lines, so your tenor line, and then your alto line. So this is meant for like choir singing, and there's a whole method and there's a whole way to sort of go through it. It's almost, I almost treat it like I don't know if any of you guys out there like Sudokus, but it's kind of like a music Sudoku, in that there's like very set rules and like moves and notes that you can write in there, you know, and everything has to like, it has to be completely seamless. You can't have like really big jumps, that kind of a thing, you know, and you can't have notes being doubled all the time unless, you know, but there's exceptions, whatever, you know. So look into that. Baccaral harmonization, you know, 4-part harmony is what it's usually known as. And I was thinking this would be, I was only just thinking just now, like how useful this has been for me, just, you know, when writing melodic lines, or like writing for like different instruments, actually writing music, or even just coming up with harmonies, you know, because I do backing vocals in my wedding band as well. And thinking about that and approaching that, I'm like, I know where I should go there, rather than just sort of thinking, I'm going to go for roughly a major third and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is basically what everyone does.
Was just what everyone does. Yeah. Or a fifth or something.
Backing vocals are always an afterthought when we're at the end of the recording session. Oh, we've got half an hour left. Do you want to put some backing vocals on? Oh, why not? You know, vocals have just finished. And then they go out and they just screech into the microphone. Oh, do a third. That's what you do, innit? It's a third. And then they expect to sound like the Eagles, just like that. But you actually listen to what someone like the Eagles is doing, or Steely Dan or whatever. You hear some in 5 and 6 and 7 part harmonies. That's beautiful.
It's way more complex than you think.
Freddie Mercury was really good at doing that. He was Bohemian Rhapsody is a 10-part harmony.
If you really want to go into like, one of my favorite examples of harmony is like barbershop quartets and just groups and stuff. Listen to what they're actually doing. It's insane. You know, like the harmonies are so lush, but knowing how to write like that and having that knowledge kind of readily accessible is so it's just invaluable, you know.
As a songwriter, definitely.
As a songwriter, as a musician, you know, if you do a lot of singing, you know, if you're like me, you're a bass player and you do backing vocals in a band, this is good. You know, this is really useful. You know, and it is fun. You know, you can just do one before you go to bed, kind of a thing. You know, just sit, you know, write the notes and then go to sleep like a Sudoku. You know.
Yep.
Anyway, somebody should make that. I'm gonna make that into an app. That would sell 100%. You know, Baccarat's randomly generated melodies that you can harmonize.
Oh no!
100. Oh,
how are you going to put microtransactions in that?
I'll make them by hints where you can just get like ready-made passages that work.
Right.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm not scummy. Anyway, so kind of a haphazard look into harmony and things like that in general, but there's keys, so it keeps going. Forgot. This is going to be a long episode. I wonder if we should make this into a 2-parter.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because that's already us into an hour.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can go and continue the second part of this. So that's rhythm theory and harmony covered. So the next episode we're going to talk about keys and so all the different keys and key signatures, because that's another thing you need to think about as well as time signatures, key signature and notation. That's the actual written music. And while if we're going to make a second episode, we might as well include tab in this.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
people use Tab sometimes. But the
Yeah, people use Tab. I use Tab. I teach Tab. There's no harm in using Tab.
yeah, the general point in this episode, or now 2 episodes, is basically to make you aware of this stuff, that it actually exists, and to just give you the sort of starting point to recognize that you might be bad at this, you've never heard of this, and to go out and try and figure it out. So we can't cover it all in detail. We can just tell you that this stuff exists so that you can go out and actually, know what you're going to study. It's knowing what you don't know is a very healthy thing. If you figure out what you don't,
sure.
if you go through life not knowing what you don't know, you feel like you know everything. When you actually start to realize how much you don't know, that's when you start to give yourself permission to go and learn something. So
100%.
yeah, we'll carry on with a part 2. And I need to think of a clickbait title, because people are just going to read that and go, music theory. But if you've been putting it off, you've been in a band for 5 years and you've never really thought about harmonies, you're always like, okay, it doesn't really matter, it's just a blah blah blah. Well, I'm just going to write all my songs in chord 1, 4, 5 and 6, and that's going to be fine. Think of the possibilities you could do with just a little bit of music theory knowledge. It's this shape. What shape's that? What chord's that?
And here's the thing: once you get bitten by that, the learning bug,
Yeah.
you just can't. You'll just keep going, and it's a good thing. Honestly, it's like the best thing that will ever happen.
Yep.
To you.
Yeah. Cool. So we'll stop
Cool.
it there, and we'll continue this with part 2. If you like what you're listening to, as always, please leave us a review and a rating whenever you listen to it, and we might even make some. Do you want to make some music theory PDFs, and we'll put them up on the website? People can download them for free. Put some.
That's a good idea.
Some basic.
Actually.
Yeah, we'll maybe make some sort of help guide stuff. Maybe even some references to websites that maybe explain it better. We'll think of something, and we'll fire it up there, and you can download all of the stuff for free on the website. Just become a member, and you'll get access to all the PDFs totally free. And as always, share to your pals, watch on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, all the subscribes, all the likes, all the shares, do the things.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's that wrapped up, and hope to see you next week for the second part of this. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
All right. Bye.